read through.
Okay.
And that'll be it. So at the end, rather than questions, what I will do actually is, I think, did I put next steps? Yep, okay, so next steps, I'm going to take away the questions. I'm going to hide that slide.
I see Chris Richo coming down the hall.
Should I, are you gonna read like the whole
Hi,
thing?
Chris.
Hi, good now.
It's not that long. Go through every single church. No, I don't think.
So that's how
Oh.
we'll proceed with this.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't list all of those things. I would just say there are several churches. I would say there are these kind of groups, and then list maybe 3 or 4 of them.
Are we ready to start, do you think? Okay. Nothing's being recorded or anything yet until we tell them.
Yes, so I would just give examples, say there's many,
Okay.
these
I
kind
was
of.
just saying, do I really need to list every
Every
single church,
every
single
organization.
No, so you can
Okay.
say we've done a comprehensive list of the
'Cause, I mean, they'll be
organizations and
showing
be
these.
included in the chapter.
Like churches, and you could say like
Yeah.
Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But mine isn't
People
that-
should look at it and give us feedback if we miss something.
Yeah, that's the key thing, is that there's still additional opportunity for feedback. We are ready to start.
Ugh, I didn't know we were going to be filmed.
Right. We did the last time, too.
We did? Oh. I would have been more nervous because I was up there talking.
Okay, we're ready?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. Tonight we are holding a public forum to discuss some draft chapters for our comprehensive plan. The Townwide Planning Committee has been working on developing this comprehensive plan for actually several years now. We're getting to the point now where we are putting together draft chapters, and we are in the process of trying to seek some public feedback on these draft chapters. Members of the Townwide Planning Committee include Siobhan Bonson, who is the Selectman's designee, James Morrissey, who is the school designee, Vinnie Vignali from the Planning Board. We have Norma Chanis, who's here tonight to my far left. We have Joanne Dunn. We have Sue Miola, Tony Sanders, Richard Zamorano, who's here to my right, and I am Anita Shipers, the town administrator. So in terms of the process that's been taken so far, the Townwide Planning Committee was looking to develop a comprehensive plan that would augment the existing master plan that the town created in 2005. And the goal here is to identify some actions, specific goals, action items that the town should be aware of and should try to take action on over the next 5 years in specific areas. Those areas jive with the master plan in terms of land use and planning. It talks about education, economic development, housing, transportation, cultural and historic. We have open space and recreation and financial considerations, as well as municipal services. We've already done 4 draft chapters for the comprehensive plan, and those were reviewed at a public forum on January 22nd. Those chapters were economic development, education, housing and population, and transportation. And we did receive some additional public feedback after that public forum, and we have been making edits to those chapters accordingly. Tonight, what we're doing is reviewing 3 additional chapters. Those include financial conditions and strategies, cultural and historic resources, and open space and recreation. So in terms of jumping into the review of the different chapters, I will take over the discussion on the financial conditions and overview. So each chapter is meant to follow a standard format in terms of an overview of the issues for that particular chapter, identifying some key findings, looking to see what the potential goals are for that area of consideration, and then identifying a specific action plan. So for financial conditions and strategies, the overview is that for the past several years, the economic conditions in the state and the town actually have been improving. We're seeing an upswing in the economy, and as a result, we are seeing economic conditions of our businesses improving. The town's annual operating budgets continue to be conservatively managed. The town has been able to retain a AA+ bond rating for the past 4 years, and as a result is able to take advantage of some favorable borrowing rates when we go out to bond for the large projects such as the police station construction and the new senior center that's under construction right now. When looking at the town's ability to pay, there's several factors that need to be considered and continue to influence our ability to pay for its operating and capital expenses. Proposition 2.5 is a state mandate still in place, which does limit the amount that we can increase our budget each year. We also have limited new growth due to the lack of buildable land. I mean, we have seen some growth recently on the remaining properties, but the town does have a considerable percentage of land that is already either developed or is protected due to the reservoir and the surrounding watershed protection areas. We also have state mandates that continue to come that we are obligated to fulfill, and these typically are in the shape of a demand for additional services that we are required to provide. The other item is that the town really has no significant sources of non-recurring funds, at least at this time. That would be an example of a one large building permit fee. If we were to have a large company come in and build a brand new building for that commercial or industrial operation, the building permit fee for that would be a large one-time revenue that the town would receive. As a result, we are looking to try to find ways to annually put additional money into our savings account, which we call our stabilization fund. The town policies, the financial policies, do state that we are supposed to appropriate money to the stabilization fund each year, and that we are required to maintain a balance in that stabilization fund that's at least 5% of the budgeted revenues. Replenishment of that fund should be a critical component of our financial planning as we move forward, because maintaining that stabilization fund protects our bond rating, and it allows us to have funds available to help manage any unexpected problems or unforeseen expenses that may pop up during any fiscal year. The town also has the Community Preservation Act fund. We have the ambulance revenue and the sewer enterprise account revenues. These are other types of funds where we bring in monies from other sources, such as ambulance fees, sewer fees, and those are set in an account specific to those departments to help offset the annual costs of those departments. There's also numerous revolving funds that help cover operating costs of certain departments and programs. A good example of that would be the Board of Health, that runs entirely at this point on their fee revenue. It's important to note that the town actively applies for all available grant funds that would be applicable to each department or potential project, and we have been more carefully tracking grant applications and our success in grant applications over the past year. Also, West Boylston has a local school system. Careful analysis will need to be done to determine the affordability of maintaining our local system as it exists today. And while we mentioned this in the financial conditions chapter, it is discussed in more detail in the education chapter, so I would refer people to look to the education chapter for more information about that. And then we have the regionalization of services and sharing of resources, which is now considered and should be considered in the future to help with the possibility of sharing large vehicles or equipment that would be necessary. We've seen examples in other communities of where collaboratives or intermunicipal agreements between communities for the sharing of those resources has been very positive. So in terms of the key challenges that we face in our financial conditions, the first one is planning for future capital needs. With the current debt we have rolling off the books, there's really very little that is coming off. We have had several projects in the past few years that have come off the books and have allowed us to replace that debt with new debt for the police station. But moving forward, the debt we have will be a number of years before we see any of that existing was able to be removed or rolled off the books, so to speak. So we need to be very careful when we consider future capital projects to see what the impact of those debt exclusions will be in the tax rate, the assessments on properties. As a result, it's going to be important for the town to look at what are the alternatives, perhaps, to the projects or to the expenditure, and also, more importantly, to really look carefully at the affordability of the project in terms of the tax rate and the impact on our citizens to afford those tax rates. That's important information for the voters to know before any debt exclusion question is brought before them for a vote. The second is to determine a sustainable source of regular funding for capital needs. The current policy and practice for funding the capital program is to appropriate available sources of money to the capital investment fund when they're available. And typically this comes from certified free cash, bond premiums, which is some cash that the town receives as a payout on a borrowing that we have done, or other one-time sources of funds. This is generally used to build up the stabilization account, because that is the higher priority according to our financial policies. But annually, we have been able to place some amount of money from free cash into the capital fund. But the town really does need to look to see what might be future steady and reliable funding of capital needs. The other consideration is that the town has what we call OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, which we are obligated to pay for. And this basically is the health insurance that is being provided to the retirees in town. We have set up a vote, actually it was recently re-voted to set up this fund at the last town meeting, but we haven't yet put money into that fund. So moving forward, the town is going to have to look to try to start building that savings account to help for future OPEB costs. By doing that, by putting money into that fund, it helps us achieve a favorable bond rating, and it will reduce the liability that the town will need to face moving forward. The other issue to consider is the reliance on free cash that we have for operational budgets. The town's current policy and practice is to cover 1% of the operating budget from free cash. But given that we're already looking to use free cash for other very important expenditures, it would be prudent for the town to try to reduce its expectation and use of free cash for operational expenses. So the town should look to try to decrease the amount of free cash used in the operating budget over the next few years. If we do so, that would free up more free cash to be available for other OPEB liability, capital projects, or just in general building up the stabilization account. So based on the conditions and the needs that we've identified, the goals that have been set aside for the financial conditions and strategies is, number one, to plan for future capital needs. The second is to determine a sustainable source of money to put toward the capital program. The third is to fund OPEB liabilities by putting money into that OPEB fund. And the fourth is to decrease reliance on free cash for the operational deficit. Now, within the financial conditions and strategies, for those goals, we've identified a number of different action items that can be looked at and taken into consideration over the next 5 years. For example, when we look at planning for future capital needs, and why would we do this? And the reason is that the current general fund debt is almost all newly issued debt with maturity dates that are a number of years away. So if we're looking to try to develop a 20-year capital plan, we need to be looking for other sources to apply toward those, what will be a building list of capital needs over time. Again, the second would be to determine a regular source of funding for the capital program, as we had talked about a few minutes ago. Funding the OPEB liability and decreasing the reliance on free cash. For each of these, it gives a rationale as to why that goal would be an appropriate goal to work on in the next 5 years. And it identifies specific action items that we should be attempting to address. And it identifies who the key players are in taking those steps for each of those goals, and basically a time frame for each of those goals. Okay, that is it for the financial conditions and strategies chapter. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Norma Chanis to take over on that.
So I'm going to be talking about the cultural and historic resources. Basically, the motto of our town is Small Town, Big Heart, and the name is a representation of our community. Though we're a small town, there's a lot of opportunity here for cultural activities, and we have a lot of historically important and interesting sites. Our proximity to Worcester also gives us plentiful access to other resources nearby. The West Boylston Historical Society is dedicated to preserving and honoring the town's history through programs, exhibitions, collections, and publications. And I'm happy to say we have a representative from the society with us tonight, Carol Parker's come, who put a lot of time to help draft this chapter and has given me a lot of feedback on it, and we're looking for more. The society is founded in 1972 to keep alive and increase interest in the early history of the town, its people, and to preserve in enduring form its items of general value in local history, as well as traditions, curiosities, and to encourage general public interest in the work. Our library provides a variety of programs for people of all ages. The Cultural Council helps underwrite or sponsor various programmings using state grant funds. Our veterans organizations consist of the American Legion Post 204, Ladies Auxiliary, and Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 690, and the Ladies Auxiliary. Our bandstand committee organizes a full schedule of summer concerts sponsored by local businesses. And our public access cable TV offers programming on 3 channels. Our Council of Aging provides a variety of services to our elder population, including transportation, lunch programs, exercise classes, Meals on Wheels, diabetic support group, education and wellness programs, and a new senior center is currently being built. We have many religious institutions in West Boylston, each with regular services and various programs for children and adults. And we also have a multitude of clubs and service organizations. So in our chapter, we've listed most of them. I won't say that we captured them all, so if people see something missing, they can let us know. In addition to these, we also have many groups associated with the schools that we didn't include in this chapter. In the past, our historical society's focus has been on the preservation of the buildings, and projects have included renovation of the Bigelow Tavern, relocation of Jacob Wynn Barn to 65 Worcester Street. They collaborated with the town's historical commission in successful preservation of the Old Stone Church, which is on our town seal, ongoing program of preservation and conservation of the Mount Vernon Cemetery. Now the society is turning its focus on preservation of the society itself and directing efforts to improving their visibility, increasing membership, and growing and sharing the knowledge and history that they have amassed. For both our cultural and historic resources, as with many or all volunteer organizations, an influx of new members and volunteers is needed. So if there are things in town that you love, we need your help. Several different concepts were looked at. Again, I think if I just sum up this tiny chart, it comes down to becoming more visible, gaining interest in the different groups, increasing the visibility, and improving how we communicate what we're offering, whether it's the different groups that are offering something or whether it's our historical society, how to engage people more. Is it more on cable TV? Is it more publications? Is it more events? Is it more FaceTime at events? But those kinds of things are what we've been looking at. And each group is looking at why they want to do it, what their goals are within the next 5 years to increase those things. And that's about it.
Thank you.
I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, Carol, if I
I mean,
skimmed
I can
past
touch
anything.
on a couple of the points
do.
for the Historical Society. I think one thing that's important is we really want to increase the visibility. I have heard that there are many people in town that think it's kind of a closed organization, that it's not really for the people of town. We have about 150 members, but that doesn't sound like an awful lot with the number of people in town. So we really want to get out there, and we have been doing it with social media, the website, the Neighbors Connect. We put the sandwich board out for programs. It's in the papers, but it's something you have to do constantly. You can't just rest back and say, well, we promoted something once and then, you know, that's it. You have to keep doing it. The other thing is, we want to provide more programs, but you need volunteers, as you mentioned. We have a small board. We've tried different things, but with such a small board, we're the ones doing it. We tried to be open on a Sunday. It's just the board. Nobody wants to be there every Sunday. So it's something we want to look at, and if we get more volunteers that are willing to put in some time, once in a while to help out. I've seen several people there at programs that, gee, I always drive by here and I've never come inside. So we want people to come and visit. And again, the fundraising is so important for us. We rely on two big fundraisers. One is our membership, and one is the yard sale. But it's an old building. It has a lot of upkeep. We want to maintain it. We want to be able to do more programs. So we need to find more ways to raise money. And then the other thing is, to have a really good historical society, you want to have a lot of artifacts, because you want to be able to draw people in, because you can't just have one and have it go for a year. You want to be changing it, but maybe we just don't have enough. So, we want people to consider when they're cleaning out, if they have something historical or something from the town, from one of their ancestors, we welcome donations all the time. So those are the key things that as co-presidents, we're working on with the board. And I mean, most nonprofits have the same issues, but I'm glad to be able to address, those of the Historical Society.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next chapter is the Open Space and Recreation chapter, and Joanne, can you speak to that one for us?
Yeah. So the intent of the Open Space and Recreation Plan is to document local open space and recreation status, needs, and concerns, and to include these issues in all building development and facility repair and maintenance projects initiated by the town. The Open Space and Recreation Plan, I believe, has been accepted by the state, and when that does happen, it qualifies the town for many state funding opportunities through the Department of Conservation Services and the Department of Conservation and Recreation. So the town can get money for different projects once that's been approved. And I believe it has been, I'm not sure.
I know the plan's been finalized. I have to double check to see if the state's accepted it.
Some of the challenges that we face are balancing the need for passive open space and active recreational space, given the limits of the natural and financial resources of this town. The need to improve some of the substandard facilities, such as the track at the high school, Woodland Park, and the high school baseball field. Limitations on elder access to the existing facilities, acquiring funding for the design, installation, and upkeep of a new swimming facility, and the lack of a recreation director. Some of our goals for open space and recreation include investigation and evaluation of swimming options, improving existing substandard MIAA facilities, improving substandard multi-use facilities at Woodland Park, improving and expanding walking and bicycle access throughout the town, acquiring and protecting priority open space parcels, investigating and establishing a fenced dog park, encouraging expanded use of the state Chapter 61 program and conservation restrictions program. We need to fill the recreation director's position. We need to ensure adequate fields remain at the former mixture building site and improve elder and universal access to the existing fields. And there is a chart that is also, that's a little bit small for people to read. I don't really think I need to read all through that, do you? But
Well, just to
maybe
point
somebody-
out that in the chapter, for each of those goals that Joanne just spoke to, there's an action description in here. This particular table still needs to be built out because it doesn't identify the, it doesn't give the clarification as to why that particular goal should be addressed within the 5-year period, and it doesn't yet identify who the the parties that would be responsible for working on that, those different action items would be. So this table is still in the process of being finalized. I do want to point out that this draft has not yet been fully vetted by the Open Space and Recreation Committee. So this is indeed very much a draft, and it could indeed change, will change before this chapter is finalized.
Right. So,
Okay, so before we go to next steps, does anyone have any questions about the specific, the 3 chapters that we just talked about? So what the next steps here are that we are seeking public comment on this. This particular session will be aired on the YouTube channel. So if people can, if you know of anyone who's interested or has any questions about what's going on, please encourage them to take a look at the video that will be on YouTube. Also, these chapters are on the website, so if people want to take a look at the chapters and, give us feedback in terms of, well, why didn't you think about this particular item, or why are you putting priority here versus priority in another area? Those are the types of things that we're looking to try to get feedback from people on. So we will be accepting public comment on these chapters until December 31st formally, but informally, even after that date. Absolutely. If anyone has any questions or concerns about the content of a chapter or the goals or action items that have been identified, please reach out to the committee. So in terms of next steps, the next few chapters that need to be developed are the land use and zoning chapter, and that will be worked on by the planning board. Open space and recreation we have talked about already tonight, and then municipal services and facilities is another chapter that should be pretty comprehensive in terms of talking about where we stand in the facility needs moving forward and what we're looking at in terms of issues or improvements to be made in municipal services. So that is pretty much it. We do not have a projected time frame on these next 2 chapters, the land use and the municipal services. It's hoped that work can begin on those this winter, and the Townwide Planning Committee will reach out to the public to schedule another public forum like this when they're ready for review on those chapters. So I believe that's it, unless there's any other questions that people may have. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight, and thank you, Townwide Planning Committee, for continuing to work on this. At this point, we will continue on with the rest of our Townwide Planning Committee meeting. Okay. So the other items that we have for business tonight are the draft minutes. I did send out the draft minutes to everyone. I hope you had a chance to review them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have the minutes of January 2nd. And members that were present there that night were Joanne, Norma, Sue, Rich, and Tony. So hopefully, if someone could make a motion to move to accept the minutes.
so moved.
And second?
Second.
Okay.
Is this an extra?
It is. The minutes, I don't have extras of the minutes, I'm sorry.
Is that mine?
I'm going to take my copy there.
Okay.
We'll give Sue a minute to look at it.
Is this from the last one?
I have,
Is this all?
we have a number of minutes that we can review.
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry, I just got out of work, and I'm not done yet.
Just kidding.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then we have the minutes of April 24th. And present that night were Joanne, Norma, Sue, Tony, Rich, and myself. So does anyone want to make a motion to move?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next is August 28th. And present were Sue, Rich, Norma, Tony, Siobhan, Vinnie, and myself. So would anyone like to move to accept?
I will.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, or any discussion, I should say?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then lastly, we have the minutes of October 16th. And present there were Joanne, Norma, Tony, Siobhan, James, and myself. So anyone like to
I'll
move?
motion.
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Right, thank you for that. Let's see, were there others? No, that was it. Okay. Now, moving forward, actually, we did have one other set, excuse me, November 27th. And present that night were Joanne, Norma, Tony, Siobhan, James, Sue, Rich, and myself. Anyone want to move?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we're caught up now. So these will all get posted on our webpage, and we'll be ready to move ahead. What I was going to say was, at our last meeting, Norma had agreed to begin chairing the committee.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
So, and thank you again for being willing to do that. I know you'll all chip in and help her. This will be my last meeting of the Townwide Planning Committee. The holidays in December are going to get in the way of our having a regular Townwide Planning Committee meeting. So I promised Norma that I would get together with her before I leave to get her ready to put forward a meeting for January, where you can kind of pick up the pieces and get ready to start working on those 2 other chapters. Okay.
Sounds good.
So, any other updates that we have?
I just want to say we will miss you again.
Oh, thank
Yes, yes. Thank you for everything.
I will miss you all too, but I know you're going to carry on and do good things. Okay, so that's it, unless, anything else?
I don't think so.
No? I
No.
don't think so.
Okay, all right, well, thank you, everyone. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I second. I'll motion it first.
Tony moved, Rich seconded.
Nighttime meetings.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And that's at 7:05.
So when is your last day? Official? 31st?
My last day in the office is January 9th.
Right after the holiday.
Yeah,
Seems like we should have had a little more of a celebration for your last meeting.
that's
I
okay.
know.
That's all right.